Good weekend.
It's over.
Yes, and we're back to work again. So today's reading is defense. I don't know if anybody got the email or read through the email, but defense is,
Yes.
The group of readings from Monday of last week through till Monday of next week are all the building blocks. Every one of them's been a very simple but very direct something, right? And today's is defense, and it doesn't talk about, martial arts specifically defense, but it covers it. But it talks about the idea that defense is such an important frame of mind. We do it all the time, we don't even realize it, right? We watch the traffic. When we're walking down the hall, we notice somebody staring at their phone and walking straight at you, and it's kind of like, okay. So we automatically defend ourselves in many ways. So it relates a lot to what we talked about in last week, which is that whole, we provide some chi energy and focus inside the body, which develops and manifests itself externally in the body and around us. And I kind of touched on the idea that it works the other way too. Stuff around us influences the surface chi, which then gets driven down inside the body, and it manifests inside us in the way that chi is moving in our body. And you can easily think about this in stress. We see stress commonly causing stomach pain, headache, lethargy, or excitement. And bad excitement, not good excitement, but you're all wound up. So that's an external that is having an internal influence, right? And for months, at times, we talk about when we do the closing exercise, we call it putting on the armor, right? Because we've opened up our energy channels, we've connected to the energy around us, and now we are completely at its mercy. Well, not exactly, but that's the idea, right? Is that we're open to it now. And everything that comes and goes, we're going to connect to it and we're going to be friendly. Well, everything out there isn't friendly. So you put the armor on before you walk out of here so that you have some basic defense line when you bump into somebody who's just livid about something and makes no sense whatsoever and they're just unloading and you don't need to take it. Yeah, that's great. Okay, well, thanks for telling me about it. So we need to kind of think about those things. Defense is also a base building block. We've been talking lately about when the ground thaws, we're going to situate our building. We got to dig the ground and put in a foundation and then build the building on that foundation. Well, we've got a lot to think into before we can do that. And this is part of that developmental construct that gives us better guidelines. We also talk about the idea that when we went through fall and into winter, we're getting rid of all the superfluous stuff and we're really kind of clearing everything and getting prepared to just kind of make it through the winter, right? Well, now we're going to start expanding again, but we don't want to just pick up all those bad habits, right?
So true.
We want to have these new building blocks in place so that we can build ourselves some guidelines and we can build ourselves a nice solid structure to build this new building on, right? So that's a lot of what these readings try to help us do at this time of year. And it's a great development coming into spring, because there will be a lot of challenges in spring and summer. And we're not getting younger, we're getting older. That's okay, right? But the progression leads us into better understanding, better health, and better movement with chi around us. So that's pretty much what that's going to be all about and how we're going to work with that. The other thing to think about in the way that the chi node is for this time of year is this is considered the great cold. Last chi node was slight cold. Why would that be slight cold when it actually feels like it's the coldest? And this is actually starting to warm up, but they call it the great cold. So the way that we look at that is we're actually winding down from having a lot of energy from summer through fall and into winter. And as winter technically ends because the days are starting to get longer, it's really not getting warmer yet. It's still getting colder, and our energy is now cold. And we have to slowly stoke it. So we're actually at that equilibrium where we want to run, but the candle's still weak. So you can't really run with the candle, right? And so the warnings are, very commonly, just because it's warm and sunny out, don't put your shorts on and go run 20 miles. That's crazy, right? Because you hit the chill in a shade pocket someplace, and it's enough of a change to give you an illness. You're still open, the cold is pervasive, dampness will soak in really, really quick, right? And it doesn't go away very fast. And so we talk a lot about brushing, we talk a lot about warming before we do anything. We talk about eating cleansing foods still, right, through this period. A lot of the Chinese philosophy at this time of year is all the food is gone. You've made it to the end of winter and spring is about to start, and all of your canned goods are gone. All of your stored meat is gone. All of the winter vegetables are getting to the point where they just won't grow. It's getting too warm. It's too sunny out, right? And so you're kind of in that stage of starving just before the plenty hits, and it will. And so that's that whole period right now, what it's called Great Cold, has this funny influence around us. So last week we did a real quick talk about the internal to external, right? Intention, chi, movement, how they roll. And so we want to look at that again, and then we're going to talk more about how that external influence really affects us internally and how we can guard ourselves against that. Okay? So let's go ahead and start with just a couple of breaths. So go into the standing position, relax the body, bend the knees, straighten the back, rest the tip of the tongue on the roof of the mouth just behind the front teeth. Feel each breath fill you up like your body is a balloon. And every time you inhale, you just kind of feel everything kind of fill up. And when you exhale, you want to let everything get out of the body. Let it all out. Just let it flow out of the body. Relax the body. And inhale fills you up again. And exhale. And go ahead at your own pace. Inhale and exhale. Come back to the room. And anybody notice anything special that time? Anything hit you? No? Okay, I noticed that when I was using the balloon metaphor, I actually rose up in my legs and started to lose my footing. I felt like I was going to float off. And it was like, you know, sometimes, you know, you recognize those things. It's a key to unlock something, and we just need to recognize when it happens, turn around, unlock the door, find out what's behind it, see if there was something in it. For me, it's a matter of excitement. I've tried a new tea lately, and the tea's a little strong for me, so it really makes me feel up and floating, and it's kind of like, okay, well, I can recognize that, so maybe I need to do either less of the tea or try a different version of that tea, right? So it's just simple things like that we need to pay attention to day in, day out. So as we did the exercise and opened up the body, we've kind of centered our energy. And so now we want to think about how the feet are connected to the ground. So bend your knees a little bit, feel the feet flatten out against the ground. Now, my feet aren't really pushing me up, but they're holding me up, so it kind of has that feeling of pressing against the ground. That energy reflects into the hips, and I can feel the hips are loading the body. I can feel the body loaded on my hips, and my legs are pushing up against the hips to hold it from slamming down into the ground. So far, so good? So now if I slowly shift my shoulders from side to side, I can feel a variation in my feet. I recognize the strength changes from one side to the other as I'm moving, right? And when we do this simple exercise we used to do for Tai Chi all the time, we move from one foot to the other, all the weights on this leg, all the weights on this leg. And we always talked about it being just the weight on the leg, but now I want you to think about pressing. So when I'm on this side, all of this leg is pressing up to hold me up. And when I move to this side, this leg is pressing up to hold me up, right? It means the same thing, it feels the same, but it's another way of looking at it. And so now if I use that metaphor of pushing, I can also use that push to push the body up and move it. And that gets us to this external energy of like throwing the frisbee. I'm going to start on this side of the body, my weight's on this side, I'm going to hold the frisbee in my hand, and I'm going to turn and push with this side of my body to let this side extend out, right? Try the other side. So all the weight's on this side. I'm going to hold the frisbee in my hand, and as I push with this leg, I can feel it pushing the body out. But my intention must be doing something to make me do this turning motion, because that leg isn't making the turning motion happen. My body is making the turning motion happen. So let's take a look at that. I'm actually thinking about the waist. I'm thinking about the muscles in my waist. And this is solid. It's being pushed up by the leg. But I'm turning from here. I'm turning my waist to get my arm to turn, right? So that pushing and the twisting together makes this happen. And of course it's front and back, it's shoulder, everything is interplaying, and that's our intention to make it happen. So let's try this. Stand in your standing position, relax the body, and try to go through that intention without actually moving your body. Feel the weight on one leg, feel that leg push and turn the body, feel the waist turn the body, and the arm accept the energy and move out. So the way I see it is I've got this kind of a channel or a highway where the energy is coming up the leg, it comes into the center of the body and spreads out slightly. And then as it comes higher up, it kind of funnels into a tube that turns and goes out my arm. So you can come up with any number of imaginative ways of looking at that. A fire hose, a freeway full of cars, any number of things can be thought of. But the idea is that's the intention, not the muscle, not the physics of the body. It's the intention of the body. So far, so good? Okay, that's not magic, right? This is something we do every day. We walk this way, we talk this way, we move, we type, we do all these things through motor skill, but it takes the intention to make the motor skill happen. So what happens when we get into a conversation with somebody? You're typing away, the phone rings, you pick up the phone, you stick it on your shoulder, and you say hello while you're typing, and they start talking, and it starts engaging your mind, and your typing slows down. And then as soon as they get into a portion of conversation where you've really got to think, everything else must stop. You've stopped typing, you've stopped breathing, you've stopped everything, because that conversation, something's going on that you really feel like you've got to focus everything on, right? So that's an external intention that's directing your body's physical actions, right? And that's a pretty obvious one. We've all had that experience. Okay, yeah, hang on just a second. Let me finish this. And say, okay, go ahead, right? because we don't want to forget where we were, but we know this conversation is going to do it to us. So we found a way to work around it. Hang on. Okay, right? So we need to do that in a lot of things in life, and we also need to do it with purpose. Because if we strictly just blank tell somebody something, usually doesn't go over very well. You got to either candy coat it, or you got to give them a setup to tell them why you're going to do this. Otherwise, they don't get it. If you're with people that are open and clear, like you deal with monks and priests and people like that, and you talk to them, they listen to you and then they stop and they look at you and they let you come to the decision after verbalizing something, and then they tell you the answer, which they suspect you already know. And in many cases, they see it in your eyes, and that's when they tell you. They watch it happen in you, and then they give you the answer you either didn't want to hear or didn't want to hear, but it's what you were expecting because you manifested it first. And we don't get that enough, right? The American Indians used to do it. You say something and they'd all sit around and smoke the pipe for a minute. That's a wise thing. Right? It gives everybody a moment to really absorb it completely, draw some conclusions, and then decide, now that's not a good conclusion, and then draw this conclusion, well, that's more in the right direction. Maybe we should think of it like this, right? And then they'll give you some information. We're in debate all the time. You know, it's going on, and we're not giving anybody a chance to really see what's going on, right? So all I'm asking is that we take that concept and we look at that as the exchange of intention that drives the way that we feel when we're talking to somebody or when we're reacting to something. Maybe you gotta give yourself a minute and don't just react. Give it a second and kind of look at the picture a little bit bigger and go, well, yeah, they might have had or something might have been, or yeah, they're right. We need to relook at that, you know? You see what I mean? So this is really, I know this is base psychology stuff for a lot of people around, you know, argumentative conditions, dealing with others, working in groups and or meetings and things like that. This is very common stuff. We talk about it a lot. But it really has a big beginning in this whole energy exchange. When I was a kid, I learned something called transactional analysis. And transactional analysis was used in the early development of child psychology, which I was a guinea pig in. And those things are exactly that. You get a cold prickly from some people, but it's not from them, it's from what you expect them to be. Or you get a warm fuzzy from people, but it's not really the person, it's the way that they interact with you, the way that they work with you, right? Child psychology, right? This is fundamental basics, how we look at things. And so we want to see that in a clear picture for ourselves. So when we have an interaction with somebody and we get that immediate response, we can stop ourselves and go, oh, hang on, let's think about it for a moment, you know? Now, obviously, you can't do that if you're coming into an intersection and somebody runs a red light. There's good reactions, there's poor reactions. They're not really bad, they're just not as good as they could have been, right? So let's think about that for just a minute. I think we're out of time. Are we out of time?
I have 5 more minutes.
5 more minutes? Okay.
10 minutes. Do you really?
My watch could I don't know. We always do it off.
Okay.
Well, for the day.
Okay, so I guess the big thing is there any questions about that before we stop and meditate on it? Is everybody okay with the concept and kind of makes sense, right? I mean, usually when you get it cleared out and you see the basics, it makes perfect sense. It's when it gets clouded with stuff that comes about. So spring is coming. It's It's going to get clouded, so we got to learn better ways of seeing it now, so it'll be clearer later when it isn't so clear. Right? Okay. So let's go ahead and do the standing exercise for a moment. So after you've taken a couple of breaths, feel the energy going down the spine, down through the legs, connecting down to the ground. And then when we inhale, we're going to feel it come up the legs, up the back, across the top of the head, down through the tongue, down into the abdomen, and at the dantian and the middle Ming Men. And so try that a couple times. Inhale goes up, goes around the back, down the face as you exhale, goes through the tongue, passes through the heart and lungs, and ends at the dantian and Ming Men just below the belly button. Okay, so now we're going to do the Chi exercise. So start low, knees are bent, and bounce the Chi ball. And then inhale, exhale. And then in the middle. And up high. Good. One more time. Low. Middle. High. Good. And then brush down the arms from the top, from the corner of the neck, all the way down the arm. This is the great cold, so we're still going to have a lot of stiff neck and shoulder. Right side or left side, down, from the neck down. Good. And then the ribs. Down legs. Okay. So before we do the closing exercise, I just want to remind you, those are the three things, or four things. Those are the four things that you can easily do when you've been caught off by somebody and their intention has changed the way your energy is flowing. Let it go, right? So the first thing you got to do is breathe, do the Chi exercise, brush down the body, and lastly, the closing, right? So put the armor back on. Out, inhale, rise up, and then drop in and down. The breath of the heart and lungs. With the dantian and the lung. The bubbling spring points at the bottoms of the feet. Breaths and just feel the energy connecting between the feet and the ground. And when you're ready, turn the palms out, inhale, rise up. Breath of the heart and lungs. Tian, and Wen. And bubbling spring points at the bottom of the feet. And a couple more breaths. Now feel the energy creeping out through the feet and down into the ground like roots from a big tree. Just deeper and deeper with each breath. And when you're ready, palms out, all rise up. Breath with the heart and lungs. And the down Tien and the Wen. The bubbling spring points at the bottom of the feet. Feel the energy connecting between you and the earth. Feel it filling up the body. Last thoughts or questions? No. Thank you for coming. Enjoy the rest of the day and week, and we'll see you next Monday.
Jen.
Oh.